Raise your hand if you have ever experienced a failure. Now open your eyes and look around. Can you see it? Everybody experiences failures. It's a common theme of life. No matter how great our lives may be, we will eventually experience some disappointments or setbacks. It's not that I'm being pessimistic. I just stated a fact. And over decades, we have developed some irrational beliefs about failures. And perhaps some of you may think that if you fail, it means that you are bad or that you will never succeed. And we somehow forgot that failures are actually stepping steps towards achieving our goals. And probably the more ambitious and the more difficult career path you choose, the more failures you will face on your way. Let me tell you my story. I am a medical doctor and a PhD student. And you may say that I succeeded. Well, yes, I achieved my goal, but my way was full of obstacles. 8 years ago, I decided to study medicine. And I didn't have enough points to get to a medical university, so I had to retake a national exam. And to be honest, it didn't go so well. So I couldn't apply to a medical university in Warsaw, in a capital city of Poland, where I already lived with my boyfriend, my sister, and my friends. And I had to move to a distant city in the north of Poland, and I started medicine in Gdańsk. Moreover, I had to pay for my education because I didn't get enough points to get a free course of studies. And at that time, all this appeared to me as a great failure. And I struggled with feelings of low self-esteem and inferiority. On the one hand, I was a medical student who fulfilled her goals to become a doctor. But on the other, I felt worse than my peers. And I couldn't stop thinking that I have to prove everyone that I am good enough to be a medical student. So, what was the reason for that? And the reason is that people tend to hide their failures. People pretend that failures do not exist, and that the only thing that matters is success. And people are more likely to show their success on the social media, and they remain silent when something bad happens. And it creates a false picture of the world based on success. So we feel worse while comparing to those people. And I must admit that I'm not the only one who struggle with that kind of feelings. I am very active on social media, where I actively support medical students during their medical way, and we very often talk about their problems or difficulties. And you know what? Medical students feel a great social pressure to achieve only successes without allowing any stumbles. And they are overwhelmed by it. I've been thinking a lot about my TED Talk, and I was wondering what idea should I spread. And after all these years as a medical student, I realized that nobody ever told me that it's totally okay to experience failures, and nobody warned me that during my medical way I will face a lot of obstacles on my way. So today I want to emphasize that failures do exist, and that we have to learn to cope with our failures to achieve our goals. Because failures should not hold us back from achieving our goals. Okay, so yes, now I stated that failures do exist. So now I want to learn you how to cope with your failures. So I want to invite you on a short course on coping with your failures. Lesson number 1, react positively. It's not that I want you to react like, yay, I failed. No, nothing like that, don't worry. I just want to show you how we behave, how we react when we are being positive or negative. So, when we face a failure, we are rather angry or stressed or just sad. So, negative emotions accompany us when we face failures. And Barbara Fredrickson, a psychologist from North Carolina, observed that when we experience negative emotions, it's like our organism is prepared for a dangerous situation. So, our sympathetic nervous system is being activated, which results in a very narrow visual focus and thinking. And it's like our organism is preparing either to attack or flee. So, in the case of coping with failures, our narrow thinking is not really helpful, right? So, let's see what happens when we react more optimistic, when we are being positive. And Fredrickson observed that positive emotions increase our physiological arousal, and it helps us to broaden our vision, to think more clearly, more creatively. So here you can see that positive emotions, they are really helpful while coping with our problems. Lesson number 2. Let's try to reframe your failures. There is one more good thing about positive thinking. It's like it's easier for you to step back and see your failures in a totally different perspectives. And this is called a positive reappraisal, that you try to imagine that failures, or not imagine, to perceive your failures as challenges, or sometimes you can even find some opportunities. Because you should always seek for some kind of benefits in your difficult situations. It's just looking for good and it's the bad. Lesson number 3. Let's try to cope with our failures. There are 2 coping strategies. The first one focuses on our emotions, and the second one is more problem solving, more about problem solving. And when something goes wrong and we face failures, we are rather stressed. I know that I said that it's good to react positively, but when something goes wrong, we are at the very beginning rather full of negative emotions, so we have to cope with our emotions. And I know that what I'm going to say is pretty obvious to you, but I really encourage you to cope with your emotions in a healthy way. So, take a long bath, listen to your favorite music, go for a walk. It's up to you. You decide. You just have to find something what really helps you to relax. And after you cope with your emotions, then you can move to cope with your actual problem. And I know that when you face a failure, it's sometimes difficult to move forward. But here's some tips. You should set a realistic goal. Make a detailed list of all the tasks you have to do, and then try to productively manage your time. And I hope that all these coping strategies will help you to start again and move forward. Lesson number 4, be patient. Did you know that J.K. Rowling spent 7 years on writing the first part of Harry Potter, and that 12 different publishing houses rejected her book. And did you know that Steve Jobs was actually fired from Apple before he got back and they succeeded? So be patient, work hard, and persistently pursue your goals. And one day, hopefully, you will succeed. So now we all know that failures are inevitable and that we should cope with them to achieve our goals. And remember that you should never be ashamed of your failures, because in the end, they are nothing but a bunch of interesting stories which you can use as a great podcast material. Thank you.